Captain Pete Maverick Mitchell. Let me be perfectly blunt. You are not my first choice. You are here at the request of Admiral Kazansky, aka Iceman. He seems to think that you have something left to offer the Navy. What that is, I can't imagine.
With all due respect, sir, I'm not a teacher. Just want to manage expectations.
What the hell? Good morning, aviators. This is your captain speaking.
And we're off.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
We're going into combat on a level no living pilot's ever seen. Not even.
Aloha. This is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man, coming to you live once again from beautiful Hawaii here on the island of Oahu, bringing you, yes you, the best movie reviews on the entire island of Oahu. And yes, this is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man. And this weekend, Memorial Day weekend, I went and saw the only movie that you should probably see for Memorial Day, and that is Top Gun Maverick. And, well, without further ado, remember our rating scale. Shock a thumbs up. It's good to see. I recommend it. Shock a thumbs down. It's junk. I don't recommend it. And for Tom Cruise's new movie, Top Gun Maverick, nearly 30 years after the original Top Gun movie, a direct sequel, it is a shock a thumbs up. Now, what can I say about this movie that maybe you haven't already heard? In some places, this opened up as early as Wednesday or so. Definitely getting a jump on the holiday weekend. You know, and very appropriately opening up on officially the 27th, Memorial Day weekend, a weekend to support, you know, those who have lost their lives in valor, serving in the armed forces. And I'm sure that's part of Tom Cruise's plan and Paramount's plan in releasing it this holiday weekend. You know, having had to push it back 2 years. This movie was supposed to come out, I believe, in 2020 or 2021, but COVID disrupted everything. And here we have this movie finally out. And, well, it is a shock a thumbs up. This stars, of course, Tom Cruise, returning as the pivotal role of Maverick, Top Gun fighter pilot for the United States Navy. But joining him in this impossible mission, you might say, is Miles Teller, Jennifer Connelly, John Hamm, Glenn Powell, and yes, even Val Kilmer returns as Iceman. And, well, this review is going to have a few spoilers in it. You know, there's no real way I can talk about this movie without spoilers. First off the bat, let me just say that, you know, I served in the United States Navy. You know, in addition to my other travels throughout the world, I did 3 Westpac tours on aircraft carriers, 2 on the USS Nimitz, 1 on the USS John C. Stennis. And in one of those capacities, served as the served as a member of Carrier Air Wing 11. What more can I say? That it's like, it's a little, you know, it's like I came into this with some skepticism. It's like, how good could this movie be? And, well, it's pretty good. It's definitely far above the very first movie from the 80s. I watched that many, many times on HBO as a kid growing up. It did not inspire me, nor did Officer and a Gentleman, to join the United States Navy. But I definitely enjoyed the film back in the day, the testosterone, etc. You know, fighter pilots, you know, and that's what many, many kids had dreamed of becoming, basically. You know, I had a roommate, well, you know, at one point during the Navy, and he had on VHS his own copy of Top Gun. He was a little bit more into fighter jets than me. He'd always make the models, and he had like the F-14 Tomcat model that he'd put together, F-18, you know, you name it, he was building it. He'd even like hang them, you know, from his, you know, his ceiling portion in his room or whatever, and he'd have them on display, and they looked pretty cool. You know, I think I've mentioned it before. I never got into models. I always wanted to, but I was a poor kid, and you know, models were expensive, man. And they're not any cheaper today. So, so you know, I didn't do very much model kit building as a child. But I digress. What can I say about this movie? It is a direct sequel to the very, very first Top Gun Maverick. So it would behoove you, if you're not familiar, never seen Top Gun 1 from the 80s, to go ahead and revisit that film. I'm sure it's streaming somewhere. You know, go ahead and check it out. If you hadn't seen it, if you're really fuzzy on the details, etc., you want to go ahead and check out this movie. Before coming into this one, because it is 30 years later. Maverick is now a test pilot, still working for the United States Navy, still active duty captain, but very much like a Steve Austin kind of role, working most likely somewhere in China Lakes on experimental aircraft, pushing the envelopes of speed, you know, and we first see him in a experimental aircraft, a scramjet, attempting to do Mach 10, etc. Very much against, you know, the wishes of some of the admirals and some of the Navy elite who are pushing towards a more drone-centered combat force, you know, UAVs, etc. Very much that had become popular during you know, the later Gulf Wars. You know, and, you know, essentially there is no lie. There is a whole division of, you know, the Navy, the Air Force, even the Army, set up into unmanned aerial drones, both not only for reconnaissance, but as we've seen with the Predators, you know, able to fire Hellcat missiles, etc., to take out targets remotely. You know, are those superior to manned aircraft? Currently, no. You know, my experience is about, you know, almost 20 years old now. However, still, I would say, even with the updates of the decades of technology, it's still not quite there. And you're always going to need a man in the pilot seat in some capacity or another. At least, you know, for the next 50 years, per se. But, you know, it's always good to have those as a backup, to have those as a primary lead-in, you know, when missions are too dangerous. You know, something to fall back on, definitely something that can, you know, put people out of risk. Has this already taken place in some areas of the military? And the answer is yes, it has. You know, the last U-2 spy plane missions were flown over North Korea about 20 years ago, before finally ending its run as an active duty plane in use for surveillance, shifting to the Global Hawk. Basically something that can stay on almost 24/7 up in the air and get nearly as good a resolution pictures, surveillance, real-time footage even, you know, from targets on the ground. Very much, you know, the next step of you know, satellite technology is now here like that. But still, you've lost something with the man not there for, you know, real-time response. There's still a lag in the remote use of it. And of course, Maverick as a fighter pilot is against that and struggles against that. But that's only one small aspect of this story 30 years later. Maverick having to deal with his age, having to deal with still trying to be a Maverick and buck the system, which unfortunately is only in the movies. I speak from experience, that, you know, there are things that you cannot do in the military, you know, that Maverick does, that he is luck personified in this movie, as he is able to get away with so much. And part of that is because Iceman has become an admiral now and is looking out for him. He's actually become commander and chief of the United States Navy Pacific Fleet. You know, commander-in-chief of the Pacific, basically, which is just over across this mountain on the Pearl Harbor side, is what used to be called Singpac Fleet, but because there cannot be a commander-in-chief of the Pacific, it is just commander of the Pacific Fleet now. You know, during the Bush years, that nomenclature was changed because there can only be one commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and that's the President of the United States, you know. As if anybody really had any questions about that. I don't know. Somebody must have had a wild hair up their butt one day and they said, everybody's got to change their names. Okay. All right, whatever. But yes, so that's where it is. But for some reason, Val Kilmer's character Iceman is in California. Possibly, you know, due to an illness. Basically, this plays off of Val Kilmer's throat cancer that he has, at least for the moment, defeated. He is dying of stage 4 cancer. And as in real life, he cannot speak in this film. I suspected that they would use more of that electronic voice in this film for him, and we'd have more conversations with Maverick and Iceman, etc. But they didn't. He's typing on a screen some of the time, and there are a few moments of dialogue between him and Maverick of short sentences that are heartfelt. But basically, from the end of the first movie, where Maverick saves Iceman's life, he is able, you know, they have a career-long friendship, and Val Kilmer has looked out for Maverick's career ever since, ensuring that he's not kicked out of the Navy for his insubordination, even against other admirals. Which, you know, it can kind of work sometimes, but you got to be really frickin' lucky. But basically, you know, after working on the experimental planes in most likely China Lakes, you know, Val Kilmer selects Maverick to teach a group of already Top Gun pilots from Fallon, Nevada, you know, fighter weapons school, which is where they train at, to undertake a severe, almost, like I said, impossible mission, into a country to strike a nuclear facility that is creating weapons rich in uranium, basically. Think of, essentially, once again, it would be Iran, except that they mix it up and it's not a deserty field, but a snowy mountain peak. So I don't know, you know, they never name the country that this mission goes against. You never see any nationality. Everybody in their fighter jets on the enemy side has their helmets on, so you cannot see anybody's faces, no skin color, no nationality. But pretty much with enriched uranium, you're thinking, and the technology that is shown, that they have sophisticated IADS, integrated air defense systems, SAM missiles, surface-to-air missiles, GPS jammers around the target site, and buried it underground along with snowy, mountainous terrain. One could easily consider this being Russia along with fifth generation fighters. Right now, only the United States with like the Raptors, the F-22 Raptors, some Russian aircraft. China has technically fifth generation aircraft. So, this would have to be some fictional point in the future for Iran to have gotten those from Russia or China, bought those, and to be used, or even, I don't know what other country it could have been, because it's like, well, only North Korea and Iran would be currently accused of weapons grade enriching of uranium, as China already has nuclear weapons, India already has nuclear weapons, Pakistan has nuclear weapons. So it couldn't be them, and it certainly couldn't be, it could be Russia, because they already have all that. But, they're a little tougher per se. So even this strike mission would most likely fail or be even that much more difficult against, Soviet, the ex-Soviet Union, Russia, with the scenario that is set up here. But essentially they have to skim across the ground at just about 100 feet, reach their target in 2 minutes against mountainous terrain, pull up to escape the SAM missiles, to fly under the radar, and then at the last minute, after hitting their target, which is a very Star Wars-y like scenario, going through the canals of the Death Star to hit a target through like the vent area. One plane has to blow the vents open, the other plane has to hit inside the crater to blow up the facility that's buried underground, and then pull a 10G straight up turn in order to escape from this valley, without hitting the sides of the mountain that it is in. Impossible mission, definitely. But that's why they got Maverick, Tom Cruise, to lead the team and teach these young bucks a thing or two about pushing their aircraft to the limit, finding the need for speed, and heading into the danger zone. So yes, pretty much it plays beat for beat, very much like the original movie. You've probably heard, instead of a volleyball scene, there is some beach touch football, basically, that is done. There is much more diversity on the fighter team now. There's one black man, a couple of women, there's a nerdy guy as well. So, there you go, diversity. Which, the Navy, the military is pretty much keen on as well nowadays. So it's not just a bunch of guys playing volleyball out there, sweating to the oldies. Although Great Balls of Fire is once again played by Miles Teller, who plays Goose's son, all grown up now, and also a fighter pilot. Not just the navigator spotter, as his father was. However, tension is depicted in the film between Miles Teller and Tom Cruise, as Maverick was against him joining the Naval Academy and actually prevented him from joining when he wanted to. But he persevered, Miles Teller and Rooster finally made it as a naval pilot. But he resents Maverick all the way through. And unfortunately, he's got to cope with Maverick to teach him and also become the leader of the team to take them on this drastic mission. So there is a lot of tension there between the two as they try to resolve Goose's death, both affecting Rooster, of course, his son, and his best friend Maverick, which Goose's death still haunts him 30 years later. What could have been taken out of this movie and made it a little shorter, or maybe focused on some more of the team itself, the rest of the team? We have a lot of focus on Rooster, of course, Miles Teller's character. We have a lot of focus on Maverick. His love interest is Jennifer Connelly in this movie, whom was not in the first film at all, but at some point in his naval career he had met this woman and they hit it off. But you know, the situations being what they were, he had to travel the world, you know, and go on deployments, and so he couldn't be with her. So, you know, she marries somebody else, but she's long since divorced with a kid now, and seeing her once again reignites these feelings of passion within both of them once more. Would it have been nice maybe to skip that portion of Tom Cruise's Maverick's life and focus on maybe the new generation of people and maybe their relationships, or maybe the focus more a little bit on their team building, perhaps? You know, there is a new, you know, because Miles Teller is basically set up to be Maverick Light in this, and even so much as to have his own competitor on the team during training. Not Iceman like Maverick had, but Hangman, Glenn Powell's character, who thinks he's hot shit, and he's good, but maybe not the best, as him and Rooster compete for key positions on this strike mission. So maybe a little bit more in depth in there, and skip the kissy smoochy stuff with Jennifer Connelly, who is still, I have to admit, easy on the eyes for being an old lady. Hey, sorry, Vision. I know you're married to her in real life, but you know, you know, and I guess she is still, gosh, maybe 20 years younger than Tom Cruise, at least 10 years younger than Tom Cruise. So, you know, to call her an old lady and not, it was like, well, hey, aren't you calling Maverick an old man and stuff? Well, all right, I'll admit he's an old man. Would he be going on this mission? You know, 30 years? Could he have done those 10 Gs around the mountain and still stayed conscious? One of the younger pilots couldn't do it. But after some training, all of them are able to accomplish this feat for the most part. And Maverick proves it can be done, you know, showing everybody off in training that, yes, you can do the 10G, no problem. He didn't even need a spotter to hit the target. He did the whole thing himself. He's pulling 10 Gs and he's still lasing the target for his missiles to hit it. No problem. Why everybody else needs a spotter in their thing, I don't know. You know, that was one of the reasons to get rid of the F-14 Tomcat, because it's like, well, hey, why should we waste on two people in the plane at a time? We just need one guy, one pilot in there. He can shoot and look around and all that stuff and spot himself, right? In this one, in these F-18s, and I guess these are still the old F-18s. They don't say they're the FA Super Hornets, so they're not the advanced ones. So, you know, that's That's maybe a little flaw in it. I mean, you know, because they say right up there, one of the major conflicts of this show is technology as well. They're facing fifth generation fighters. Again, like I say, you know, Russian or Chinese versions of what the F-22 Raptor would be, basically. And they have to face those against older F-18 models, not even the Super Hornets, so just the F-18 Hornets, normal Hornets, apparently. Why they don't use the more advanced Hornets, you know, I'm not sure. Why they don't use F-22s, I'm not sure either, other than, well, I don't know, I think they have launched a couple off of a carrier, so, you know, that's still not 100% clear. Why they wouldn't use, you know, but I guess one of the story points is that the United States is no longer the technically superior force in the world. And they use these older planes to demonstrate that. And also to demonstrate that it is the training that our pilots in the United States receive that gives them the edge over older, faultier equipment than our enemies, essentially. Which there is a moniker of truth in. United States military pilots receive the most hours of training in their planes than any nation in the world. Often well over, you know, 100 hours a month, you know, maybe even 100 hours a week, at least 40 hours a week. Whereas if you're lucky in some parts of the country or some parts of the world, you only get 40 hours maybe a month, maybe every couple of months, who knows. Just basically enough for the pilot to be familiar to take off the aircraft, do a couple of maneuvers, and then land the aircraft. Definitely not enough for dogfights, training, you know, bomber strikes, etc. Who's probably the next proficient would be Russia, followed by China, who is trying desperately to catch up, and also playing the UAV unmanned aircraft vehicle game as well. And that's all I'll say about that. But this also brings in some questions about, you know, definitely, you know, they didn't have access to everything, and the military probably didn't want to go into what they could have used other than manned aircraft for this. Tomahawks, although the GPS jammers, there is a way those Tomahawks could have still hit those targets, and that's all I'll say about that. But because this is a Top Gun fighter pilot movie with Maverick, Tom Cruise, they had to have people flying the planes. And so fly they do. And you do see some intricate aerial photography in this, especially from the cockpit. You know, you can watch some of the making of this Top Gun Maverick movie on YouTube, where they position cameras in the cockpit while people are flying. Tom Cruise basically does most of his flying, if not all of it, in this movie. You know, and the other guys in the aircraft, or at least in the cockpit positions, somebody else flying the plane behind them, etc., at the controls, just to give it a superior look. Definitely helps with this film. I saw this in IMAX. Again, a shock of thumbs up overall for the story. You know, is it believable? A little bit, you know, 30-year-old, you know, later Tom Cruise going on this mission. Most likely not. You know, in his, you know, 60s, probably not going to happen, even with a force, you know, even with an admiral pushing for you to do it. But, you know, this is the movies, and you have to take it with a grain of salt that, okay, this is going to happen. And these are the impossible odds that they face, even so much that at the end, you know, Tom Cruise is able to work his magic and actually get his hands on an F-14 and take out some of these 5th generation fighters. You see, you know, yes, superior piloting can take you a long ways, but eventually the superior aircraft is going to win at some point. And, you know, and that's a great, you know, analogy that they show, that through life, there's only so much you can do. Yes, the pilot and training is a major factor and can take you a great way, but, you know, still, when the odds are against you, the odds are still against you. So, you know, and that's kind of a look at maybe Tom Cruise thinking about, you know, or Maverick thinking about, you know, retiring at this point, and giving up his commission in the Navy, and accepting to go out gracefully and on top, you know, but, you know, so there you have it. I won't go into any more spoilers than that. No real big flaws in this movie, again, other than the little nitpicky things that I said about, you know, maybe his age, maybe the aircraft, maybe there's another way that they could have done it. Some of the way that they handle the mission briefings, a 2-star admiral giving the troops, these fighter pilots, a mission briefing for what they're facing isn't going to happen. That's going to be done by the squadron's intelligence personnel, giving them the IPB, the intelligence preparation of the battlefield, briefing of what they will be facing, not the admiral himself. But for dramatic effect, that's what we get in this movie. And John Hamm delivers as the 2-star admiral doing it. All right. So again, shock a thumbs up for Top Gun Maverick. A great movie to see on Memorial Day weekend, especially since this weekend, at least here in Hawaii, where I'm at, is so rainy and overcast this weekend. Forecast said it would be a little sunnier, slight chance of rain, and it's been raining off and on all day. So you might as well go to the movies. Unless you're just going to the beach, in the ocean, getting wet anyways, because you're going to be wet outside. Sorry about all the picnics. All right. Mahalo and aloha.